Hello and welcome to the NBA Outlet, presented by OTGBasketball.com. Make sure to follow OTG on Twitter at OTGBasketball. Also hit that subscribe button. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Kory Waldron, to talk some trade deadline juice. What's up, Kory?
It's the most wonderful time of the year. I love this. Today was madness. I went to the gym. I came home. I was about to hop in the shower, and then the wash bomb started dropping. I stood outside my shower for a good 30 minutes.
It literally is. It was crazy. And to be honest, this morning I was getting kind of nervous. I was like, oh, shit, there's no trades. And then I was talking to somebody. I was like, as soon as the Cavs make one big trade, everything's just going to go off. Next thing you know, the Cavs make one big trade, and then we just get a barrage of trades all over the place. But let's start with that trade. The Cavaliers traded Isaiah Thomas to the Los Angeles Lakers for Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance. The Cavs also sent over Channing Frye in a 2018 protected first-round pick. It's only protected 1 through 3, so 99.9% chance it's going to the Lakers. We'll talk about the Cavs side first. What do you like about getting rid of IT and adding Clarkson and Nance?
Well, the sound bites might drop off a little bit for the next, couple weeks from the Cavaliers. We won't have Isaiah Thomas constantly talking, blaming others, passing the blame ball, complaining about Kevin Love faking sicknesses. There was a lot of drama and cancer that came with Isaiah Thomas. I just don't think him and LeBron James could coexist. Even last night, I've watched his highlight probably 50 times. When LeBron hits a game-winning shot, he runs over to Osman, and they chest bump. And Isaiah Thomas is, right there, pulling on LeBron like a little kid. And LeBron's paying him no attention.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
in that whole game, you could see it. That whole game, every big moment, you could see LeBron hit a shot or something, or even when IT had a good shot, just the relationship, the connection wasn't there. And give you props. Kory's been saying since we started doing, the trade deadline preview pods, he believed that Isaiah Thomas wouldn't be in a Cavs jersey Friday, and that's going to be the case.
It just didn't make sense. And also, this is a league, as great as he was last year, his sister passing away and everything he did for Boston, that's not what he did this year for Cleveland.
Exactly.
The fact of the matter is he missed time with a hip injury for whatever that is. You can take that, you can say that's the big reason why he's struggling or not. But the fact of the matter is, in 15 games, he was shooting under 40% from the field and under 30% from three. The Cavs, who are a contending team, you can't, especially when you're already a defensive liability, you can't wait to hold on to a player like that, hoping he's going to come around when you have a championship aspirations in mind. It just doesn't work.
Especially when he was talking so much. If a guy's struggling like that and he's doing, putting a lot of effort in, working hard in the court, not saying much and just, being a great teammate, you don't really mind as much. You can find a way to have him there. But like we've mentioned in the past, Brad Stevens did a great job hiding him defensively. The Cavs already have their struggles. It just wasn't a good fit, and, things just didn't work out that way. But what do you think about the addition of Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance to the Cavs?
I'm a huge Jordan Clarkson fan, first off. I've loved him since the Lakers drafted him. I think he's very dynamic. He plays the 1 and the 2. He can score in bunches. He's a decent playmaker. I really think he's going to fit in well with this Cavs team. It is going to be the first time he's going to be in a winning situation. So, whatever that's worth for a young kid, have to see how he adjusts to big time moments, because he will be playing in the playoffs for the first time in his career. But I really like the move. And I think Larry Nance, I'm prepared for a bunch of dunks. Larry Nance Jr. can slam it down. LeBron can throw it down. Jeff Green can throw it down. We have a couple nice dunkers now on this Cavs team.
Yeah, I love this move. I love the fact, giving up a first is whatever, but I think this move, what it did, not only did it help the Cavs this year, they got a lot quicker and more athletic. And like you said, Nance can throw it down. Clarkson's been having a solid year. Definitely going to be a change in environment, but LeBron usually gets the best out of guys. That wasn't the case with IT and some of the guys that were here, but I think LeBron could get the best out of Clarkson, the best out of Nance. And what it does for the Cavs, it gives them a little insurance. Yeah, they traded their first-round pick, but they picked up Clarkson, who's under contract until, I believe, 2020, and then they have Nance, who's still on his rookie contract, so they'll have him for restricted free agency if they want to keep him as well. So not only did they improve right now, but they gave them a little protection against if LeBron leaves. Because you add these two solid guys, they're not ever going to be all-stars, but we could both agree they're above-average NBA guys, at least potential to be.
They can be core role players on a championship-winning team. I truly believe that. I would not be shocked, if, let's say, if the Cavs don't win, if 5 years down the line here, somehow Jordan Clarkson's on a different team as like a sixth man or a seventh man off the bench and wins a title. Because these kind of guys can have that kind of impact on the court. With Lonzo Ball down, Jordan Clarkson has had multiple games where he's had double-doubles, scored over 20 points. He's not great defensively, but he's still an upgrade over what you had in Isaiah and what you had in Derrick Rose. And Jose Calderon, for what it's worth, is just old and can't really defend that well. He's got no lateral quickness.
Yeah, and one thing you love about these two is they're going to bring energy, and that's been a problem for the Cavs, especially in the regular season. Some of these games that it's hard to get up for, maybe against the Orlando Magic in the second half, Clarkson and Nance aren't going to really take any time off because they haven't played a ton of NBA games. But let's talk about the guys leaving. We already mentioned IT, but Channing Frye leaving actually is kind of substantial in a way because Kevin Love is out and he's that floor spacing big, and he released a pretty funny video saying like, "Oh, don't go 0-6 or they'll trade you." But what are your thoughts on Frye being out of Cleveland?
It's unfortunate, but it's a part of the business, as he said in the one video he released after he was traded. He also said, "Don't go 0-6 or they're going to trade your ass." Channing Frye has always been a comedian off the floor. Now that Off-Roading Podcast is officially
Dunzo.
Yeah, officially Dunzo. Unless he keeps it going over in LA, he'll have some of the young kids on with him maybe. But he was good. He's a good veteran presence. I know they're already looking to bring up Kendrick Perkins to have him be kind of the veteran, mentorship of this group. It seems like every LeBron team has that kind of guy on the roster who doesn't really play, but he is kind of the vocal support behind the scenes. It was Channing Frye, and I think Kendrick Perkins is going to be that new guy.
Yeah.
But he's a classy guy.
Yeah, and they mentioned Perkins coming back. It's funny. He's not going to play, obviously, but he's going to be great in the locker room and kind of get all these new faces acquainted with each other and kind of keep everything steady for LeBron, so he doesn't have to necessarily worry about that. But the Lakers side of the trade, picking up another first-round pick, not a bad move at all. They probably wanted a first for Clarkson. Nance, they were never going to get a first for, so comboing them together and walking away with a first, not a bad move for Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka.
And, a point just like that, they got the pick for another draft pick, and they got cap space.
Yep.
Channing Frye and Isaiah Thomas are both expiring contracts. Brooke Lopez is an expiring contract. I'm sure they would have liked to get Luol Deng off the books, but you still have three guys coming off the books, which I believe will let them sign two max players next offseason or the following offseason, whatever they want to do. But they have money to make a move for two superstars for max money. I think Isaiah Thomas will be okay there. A lot of weird reports have come out since this has happened saying that they plan on starting him alongside Lonzo, that Isaiah Thomas's agent said we're not coming off the bench. So we'll have to see how that develops over the next few weeks when Lonzo comes back. But according to Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas was ecstatic on the phone to be a part of the Lakers. I guess in years past, Isaiah Thomas had expressed interest in wanting to play for the purple and gold. We know that he says Kobe Bryant is the best basketball player of all time, which is probably why he didn't work with LeBron too. You can't say Kobe's the best when you're playing with LeBron. But we'll see how it works out. He's got his sixth destination, so he's got another chance to build a long-term career.
And I wouldn't be completely surprised if there's a buyout. It wouldn't be shocking. Instantly in my head, I thought about it, and I'm like, do you want this guy around the young guys? Especially, what is he going to do? What is he going to bring to the Lakers? I'm not sure. Expiring $6 million contract, I'm sure they could buy him out, and he could go to another team. That's what I personally would want to do if they want to keep him. I don't really see the point, especially when you have so many young guys and you have young guards you want to play. I don't know why you'd keep him.
Is there a time frame to buy him out? Because they did say today they're not buying him out.
I would assume there's a certain date, I don't know off the top of my head, that you have to be off NBA roster to be on another NBA roster for the playoffs. It's not relatively soon. It's probably early March, I would think. So I wouldn't be surprised. To me, that just is Isaiah Thomas is not doing good for his image right now. The fact that it got leaked that he's saying, "Oh, we're not coming off the bench." Bro, you need to be a better teammate. Everything that's been said about you in Cleveland is not helping your case. Your contract this summer just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
And I don't know if you remember this, but I remember when he was with Boston, there being comments that came out about teammates saying that Isaiah Thomas was at times really hard to deal with in the locker room.
Yeah, I do remember that.
That he was really standoffish. Yeah. That he was really standoffish. He kind of had this all about me attitude. And obviously they were winning and everything, so I don't think, like you said, it kind of went under the rug. But I've always heard issues about him in the locker room. So, And when you're not putting up 30 points per game and, being an MVP candidate, it doesn't really help you.
Yeah, and when you don't have an elite defensive players behind you to protect you, you look a lot worse. And I think that's going to be the case even more in the Lakers. The Lakers have played some good defense this year, but you can't expect all these young kids to clean up for Isaiah's mess. Going into the offseason, personally preference, I know not to get too much off topic, like, do I really want to invest big money into a point guard that can't defend at all? Like, no offense to him, and I'm not saying he's physically unable to defend NBA players. He's just not big enough. So it's going to be a huge offseason for him and what happens. I'm intrigued. I think personally his best role is still six-man, but we'll see what happens. On to the other Cavs move, which is arguably just as big, and I think, like we mentioned on a million pods, the Cavs had to make more than one move, and I would say they had a pretty successful day. They picked up Rodney Hood and George Hill, and the Jazz picked up Jay Crowder and Derrick Rose, and the Kings picked up Joe Johnson and Iman Shumpert in a 2020 second-round pick. So we'll start with the Cavs. Picking up Rodney Hood and George Hill, two guys that are known for playing some pretty good defense. Rodney Hood still has some potential, a young guy. Hill wasn't happy in Sacramento. What do you like about bringing on these two?
Defense. This was the trade solely based on defense. Rodney Hood is a very good perimeter defender. He's shooting 39% from three, 17 points per game, and he came off the bench in Utah behind Donovan Mitchell, who obviously I don't think anyone expected him to be the starter over there, but he won that starting spot over top of Rodney Hood. Hood has had some injury issues, but he'll likely start now ahead of J.R. Smith. At least I would start him over J.R. Smith. Give J.R. Smith that bench role again. I'll let him be the sharpshooter off the bench. But Rodney Hood is a really good defender. Yeah, he's young. He has an expiring deal. I'm not sure if he's restricted. I don't think he is. But this is another guy that the Cavs could.
Rodney Hood?
Yeah.
Rodney Hood is restricted.
He is restricted. So it gives the Cavs another avenue. In case LeBron leaves, they can lock up money as some of these younger guys to still have a decently young core, like you mentioned, getting Clarkson and Nance. And then George Hill. You know how I feel about George Hill. I'm not a huge George Hill fan, only because when he was with the Pacers, he was expected to be a true point guard, and he's more of a two guard in a point guard body. Good defender, can still hit the three. In Sacramento, it just wasn't the right fit. But now he gets to play kind of that two guard role as a point guard, and because LeBron James still runs the show, and I think this actually could be, the best showing of George Hill we've ever seen in his career.
Yeah, I honestly love the fit for George Hill. Like, I consider George Hill like a 3-and-D point guard. He can shoot the three ball. He doesn't necessarily play make a ton. He did a little bit more with Utah when he was there, but in Sacramento, it hasn't worked out. I love the trade. I love it on both ends, and the Cavs didn't give up anything. They didn't give up anything. They gave up Jay Crowder, Derrick Rose, and Iman Shumpert, all guys who have not been good for them. You know what I mean? And then they had to send a second-round pick to the Kings. Like, I don't know what the Kings are doing. I don't know what the Utah's doing in this trade. Like, giving up Rodney Hood, they must have not had any offers, and they like Jay Crowder, I think, because they did have interest in Jay Crowder in the summer. Derrick Rose, on the other hand, for Utah is going to get bought out. And for the Kings, Joe Johnson's going to get bought out. Iman Shumpert, there's always been questions about, does he really care about basketball? So I don't know what happens with that. And then you have your 2020 second-round pick. But, I mean, the Cavs, in my opinion, definitely won this trade.
Without a doubt, they won this trade. The Jazz didn't get really anything in return. They already waived Derrick Rose. So, at the end of the day, I guess they just didn't value Rodney Hood that much.
And I guess they like Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder was a guy they did target. Like, when they lost Gordon Hayward, there was some talk about a sign and trade and Jay Crowder going to Utah. So maybe they think they can get some more out of him. And he's on a pretty good contract, so it's not the worst thing. And George Hill was getting a ton of money, so maybe the Kings were like, I think you mentioned, like, they just want to get rid of him, to get him out of there. I'm happy Joe Johnson got out of Utah, too, because he'll get bought out.
Right. Joe Johnson definitely will be bought up by the Kings. He already expressed that he wanted to play, like, in a winning environment. But like you mentioned with Jay Crowder, I think Jay Crowder is going to be great in Utah. I really do. I think the issue with playing with LeBron is you don't really play for a system when you play with LeBron. You play around LeBron.
Yeah.
The Tyronn Lue is not a very good coach. I will stand by that. I think this is really a team that's run by LeBron solely. This is not like Eric Spoelstra's Miami Heat LeBron. And I believe, Quinn Snyder, he's done it. We've said it on this pod in years past. Last year they had a ton of injuries. He kept them relevant. He does a great job with rotations and everything else. And Jay Crowder's a system player, and this system is based on defense, something that Jay Crowder normally is very good at. I just believe you put him next to guys like Ingles and Mitchell, Rubio, Gobert, everybody who's playing hard for defense. I just think Jay Crowder may actually feel like he's home in a place like Cleveland. They just didn't play much defense, and he just never looked comfortable.
Yeah, and to be honest, like Jay Crowder had a really rough summer. Like he got traded from Boston, where he loved being in Boston. His mother passed away, which is obviously
The same day.
Yes,
The same day.
which is super upsetting. Like, I mean, just imagine that. And then like Cleveland, things aren't going bad. You're the new guy, and it's easy to take some of the blame. You can't hit any threes. Now you're going to go to Utah. There is like half as much pressure. Like you mentioned, a good system, a great coach. Like I love Quinn Snyder. I think he does an amazing job. People just don't talk about Utah. So it's a perfect situation for Crowder to kind of get back in his groove. And who knows, the Jazz quietly are playing pretty well right now, might sneak their way into the playoffs. But moving on to probably the trade that shocked me maybe the most, to be honest. Like the guys that were traded, Clarkson, Nance, Rodney Hood, George Hill, they're all already tied to the Cavs. But Dwyane Wade going back to Miami, I did not see that coming.
Definitely it's funny because like that was like the last trade the Cavs made today was the Wade move. So you're getting all these moves. The Clarkson, you're like, yes, is good, and then you get the Rodney Hood, George Hill. You're like, wow, this is really good. And I remember thinking in the back of my head like, this is LeBron's got a solid team around him. Him and Wade get to make one more run at it. And then I think like in that moment was when I think Dickie Fung, one of our writers, put in like our group chat, Wade County is back. And I was like, what? Like, no, that can't be possible. Yeah. And then like I look and it was like Dwyane Wade for a very heavily protected second round pick, which means they pretty much just gave him back to Miami for nothing. The reports came out that they obviously all talked LeBron, Wade, and they were all on the same page. LeBron was cool with it because I guess they talked about rotations, and I guess with them getting Clarkson and all those guys, Wade just wouldn't have gotten any minutes. And Wade obviously still wants to play. We know how much he loves Miami. Miami is Dwyane Wade, and he gets back there. I guess him and Pat Riley also like reconnected after Wade's longtime agent died. So it seemed like the writing was on the wall.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk about Wade wanting to go back to Miami after the season and retire there. And obviously he's getting a little bit older faster than we thought. So it kind of works out for him. It works out for the Cavs, and it's nice to see, they all discussed it and it went on like that. But still really shocking. Like I just didn't expect it to happen. I didn't expect Wade to be traded. But on to another trade that was kind of a surprise in terms of what they got back, and that was the Suns and Magic. The Suns were able to get Elfrid Payton for a 2018 second-round pick.
Yeah, I think not the Suns, the Magic were desperate. We knew they were at least, trying to sell everyone currently on their roster for the most part. And I'm just guessing they just didn't have much traction. Evan Fournier is 4 years, 17 million a year over 4 years, or whatever it is, a very high contract. No one really wants to take a gamble on that. Aaron Gordon is interesting, but they probably weren't going to get the return they wanted for him. And then Vucevic is coming back from the broken hand, so it's tough to move him. And Elfrid Payton, just another guy from this Magic core or the young core that just didn't pan out, and they're going to trade. And I would not be shocked, Nick, if in 3 years' time, Elfrid Payton looks really, really good alongside Devin Booker.
Yeah, I think this is a great situation for him where you don't need him to be that scorer. You don't need him to be that shooter. And then you possibly could surround him with other shooters on the floor when you have bigs like Dragan Bender and Marquise Chris who can shoot the ball a little bit. Obviously, Chris is very inconsistent, but Bender's game coming into the NBA was being that, project international guy that can really spread the floor and do a lot of things. So I think Payton and if you're Phoenix, you're just like, thank you. Like, we needed a point guard. We needed somebody that we can, pair up with Devin Booker. No guarantee Payton's that guy, but at least we have that chance and we didn't have to waste a first-round pick on it. We sent them for a second. And Orlando in general is probably one of the more surprising teams. Like, I expected them to move more guys. I just thought, it's best for them is to tank the rest of the season, try to get a high draft pick, and they just didn't move the guys. It just seems like a lot of teams are being stingy with draft picks this trade season.
And I think that might have been a fear for Orlando, right? If you want to get off one of these contracts, you might have to package a draft pick. And the Magic are already so bad, I don't think they wanted to move their first-round draft pick. And I think probably a lot of teams would have wanted that draft pick along with the contract, which would have been an issue.
Or they probably were just like looking for someone like Fournier. They're like, all right, we have to pay him mad long. We're kind of doing you a favor, especially if you're entering a rebuild. So we'll give you a swap. This guy might have 1 year less on his contract, but they're pretty evenly matched, and maybe we'll throw in a second rounder. And Orlando's probably like, you know what, maybe we'll just try to swing for the playoffs next year or something. They're just in a strange situation because they've just had so much lack of success. And I know this was tied to something, but the picks that were used for Elfrid Payton that they traded to get him in the draft ended up being some other good players. So things are really looking ugly for that Magic front office. Now
it's dark days.
Yeah, and it's already, Oladipo and Tobias Harris having great years didn't make them feel any better. Now it's just not getting much better from there. But the Knicks made a nice trade. They picked up Emmanuel Mudiay. The Nuggets got Devin Harris and a second-round pick, and the Mavericks grabbed Doug McDermott and the Nuggets second-round pick. So let's start with the Knicks. What do you think about the Knicks picking up Emmanuel Mudiay?
I like it because it's future oriented.
Yes.
It's not about winning now. It's not about, just taking on a contract or whatever. It's about just getting another young piece. Whether, Mudiay fits in and he stays long term, that obviously his play has to show that. But I really think they're going to give him and Frank the keys to really try and play the second half of this year. And who knows? Mudiay may never be a starting point guard, but he could be a backup to Frank for years. We really don't know. In Denver, it didn't really work out for him. He's got a fresh start in New York. If I'm correct, I believe the Knicks targeted him in the draft. Like he was one of the guys they had interest in. Right. So they get their guy a couple of years later. We get to see what that's going to be like. Losing Doug McDermott, it's not anything that you're going to, droop your head on. It is what it is. I like the move for the Knicks. The only bad thing for the Knicks is they weren't able to move Cantor or Noah. I thought they would have wanted to move those contracts a little bit heavier. I know that for Courtney Lee, again, to your point about the first-round picks, they only wanted a first-round pick for him. And people were really stingy on picks, and I'm not sure I would have given up a first-round pick for Courtney Lee. So that deal, no deal went through on that front.
Yeah, with the lack of cap space, everybody wants their first-round pick because they know it's going to be harder to get the free agents. With that massive spike, guys were just overspending where they should have been like, it's not going to be that high in a few years. Maybe we should calm down and giving Joakim Noah a huge deal. But I like the move for Emmanuel Mudiay. You get two young point guards. You get Frank and you get Mudiay. Now there's a good chance one of them at least turns out good. You know what I mean? Or both turn out good, or like you mentioned, maybe Mudiay becomes a backup, Frank's your long-term starter, or maybe Mudiay holds down the show, because Frank is definitely a longer type of project, or Mudiay is probably a little bit closer, but still needs a lot of work too. But I agree, the fact that they're like, we need to get some young guys and kind of rebuild, and McDermott was probably a little bit further down in terms of their timeline. Mudiay matches up a little bit better with Porzingis and Frank, so now they just keep adding young guys. So I think it actually is a smart move by the Knicks, and that's not something we always say. But moving on to the Nuggets side, they wanted to pick up a veteran guard. They picked up Devin Harris. And Mudiay wasn't doing what they wanted him to do, so I think that works out for him. They also got the Knicks 2018 second rounder, which could be relatively high. So,
yeah, I mean, they got a nice draft pick, obviously. Devin Harris, he's been with your New Jersey Nets at the time. Always been a solid
autograph. I got an autograph from Devin Harris once. I met him. So
there you go.
So he's a nice guy when I met him, and he's super tall and lanky. He's a little bit bigger than he was then, but I was surprised like how skinny he really was. He's put on some size, but Devin Harris is Devin Harris, and I think he'll fit what they probably need him to do.
I mean, they've lacked a backup point guard. When your backup point guard is Mudiay, who has struggled, it isn't good. I know they had Will Barton kind of run like the point guard as well, but he gets tunnel vision too often.
Yeah, he likes to score.
Yeah, so Devin Harris, and same thing with Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is kind of more of a scoring point guard. Devin Harris does it all. He's one of those scrappy point guards at this point in his career. He still plays decently good minutes for the Mavericks. He did at least, and he gets a chance now to compete again because as we know, the Mavericks are in the bottom of the West. They're not going anywhere. And the Nuggets have a real chance, with Paul Millsap coming back just around the corner. This team could make a run to be, a 7 or 6 seed in the West.
Yeah, and they'll definitely give somebody a fun series because they can really light it up offensively. It'll be defense where they need to step up. But the Mavericks, like you mentioned, the Mavericks picked up Doug McDermott, the Nuggets second-round pick. Nothing crazy from here. Like they get a younger guy for Devin Harris, a sharpshooter in McDermott, who they probably could use. So they'll probably just take a flyer on him and see if it works out. I don't really know what long-term plans are in Dallas, if they're going to try to rebuild or if they're going to probably do what they've been doing for a long time, and that's just like constantly trying to swing on free agents.
I think they'll always swing on free agents, but when you're this bad, you'll use the draft. Like I'm saying, like if you can use the draft, you'll use the draft. Like you're going to get a good pick in the draft, so you're going to use it. Otherwise, I don't think Mark Cuban will ever not try to swing for the fences in free agency. It's just kind of one of those owners where, like, if he is in the lottery, he'll use it. If not, he will swing for the fences.
Yeah. Moving on from there, another trade. The Nets are back making another trade. Nothing crazy, though. They picked up Dante Cunningham for Rashad Vaughn, who they just picked up earlier this week. From the Nets' perspective, I think just adding another veteran, a 4 that can shoot the 3 ball. I thought this move kind of signaled that they might make the DeMarre Carroll move because they wanted to have a veteran around in case they traded him, but that wasn't the case. What are your thoughts on this move?
I still think that's why they made this trade. The minute this trade came up, I tweeted interesting to this trade, and it's because I immediately thought when this went through that DeMarre Carroll was on the way out. And I believe that's, even though, he can obviously help the Nets, and this, he's a little bit more size. You rather play him than Quincy Acey at this point. But I think that the Dante Cunningham Nets, so if they did move DeMarre Carroll, they had someone to fill his spot. Now he's just going to get some minutes and take away from Quincy Acey.
Yeah, exactly. He's just another vet to have around, a guy you can put on the floor that'll probably do the right thing. The Nets have a ton of young dudes, and when they get banged up, like AC and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson have been out, and they really haven't had many fours. They've been playing James Webb III, who's a G League call-up, so having a vet around that you can just fill in once in a while would be nice. And Rashad Vaughn, I think maybe the Pelicans just want to get rid of some salary. I think he's paid like $500K less, but nothing really big in this move. Like you said, I think it might have been like a safety net for another move that just never happened. The Blazers made another small move. They traded Noah Vonleh and cash to the Bulls for the rights to Milican and Rakovic. And what essentially this is just a salary dump. Noah Vonleh gets them a little bit off their cap number.
Yeah, this is all about the luxury tax because Vonleh is expiring free agent at the end of this year. So they really just want to get under the luxury tax because, as we know, small market teams, when you're in that luxury threshold, it's extremely tough, especially when you're not contending.
Yeah,
so it was a simple move.
The Blazers owner's a baller, though, so he could handle it. But, teams just don't want to do that. And for the Bulls, they get a flyer on Vonleh. Whatever, see what he can do. He's always shown a little bit of potential, but never really put it together. Wizards do the same thing. They traded Sheldon Mack to the Hawks, and then the Wizards will get a future second-round pick that'll never convey. So it's just essentially a complete salary dump. The Kings and Raptors made an exchange. Malik Richardson for Bruno Caboclo, and who will be released. So
Syracuse.
Yeah.
Syracuse boy, Richardson, going over to the Raptors.
Maybe, the Raptors can get something out of him, but essentially nothing crazy on that front. Another small trade. Luke Babbitt traded back to the Heat. Nothing crazy here. The Hawks get Ocario White, who I think was already released. So Luke Babbitt just gives him another 3-point shooting. And I think we mentioned on the trade deadline preview pod, the Heat could use some shooting.
Right, and they got a shooter in Babbitt, and then they got the best shooter in Wade. So completely addressed those issues.
But and then Pistons, they acquired James Ennis from the Grizzlies for Bryce Johnson, a future second-round pick. It's not a bad move. Like, it's a low-key move. Yeah, I think the Pistons could use a little bit of depth on that bench. So James Ennis isn't a bad guy to have around. And then the first trade of the day, Jameer Nelson to the Pistons from the Bulls for Willie Reed and the right to swap 2022 second-round picks. Willie Reed, I believe, was already released. So Jameer Nelson just gives Detroit that backup point guard that they really needed.
And this is another thing on the Willie Reed front. I don't think he was initially thought to be traded and then bought out, but the domestic violence stuff that came out that suspended him, I think that was kind of like the ownership and everything. You don't want to be a part of that in this day and age. Anything that involves sexual harassment or domestic abuse, you want to be as far as where you just want it around you. You don't want to have to deal with any of those rumors, those conversations. And I think the Pistons want to get rid of him as fast as possible after that, the ruling was decided.
Yeah, exactly. And then no offense to Willie Reed, and when you're a player of that caliber, you can't make those type of mistakes. So, you got to be A1, and we don't like that type of stuff anyways. Domestic abuse, sexual harassment has no place in any type in the world. But moving on from there, that's a longer conversation. The trade that happened yesterday, the Knicks traded Willie Herman Gomez to the Hornets for 2 second-round picks and Johnny O'Brien, who was released already. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, you know, I thought that because Willie Herman Gomez was traded for, I had like this weird feeling in the pit of my stomach that the Hornets were going to trade Dwight Howard, and then they were going to try and build forward with Cody Zeller and Herman Gomez with Kaminsky as that 4 or 5, and like I really thought that was going to be a thing. Like I had this, I was writing a trade for the Cavs this morning, and I had like this crazy deal where Batum, Howard, and Kemba all went to the Cavs. And I was like set. Like I went to sleep last night and I was like, this is definitely going to happen. Like this is the move to happen. And obviously nothing happened in that front. But they got another young center.
Yeah, they definitely will move one of the guys. I thought they might move Frank, to be honest. I thought they might move Frank Kaminsky because I think some teams might be interested in him. Or even Zeller, because Zeller has a little bit more value than Dwight does. People might be like, we'll bring this guy off the bench. He's a solid dude. He's a big that we could have. But that isn't the case. But I think moving forward, Herman Gomez is a guy you're willing to take a flyer on. They can find time to play him, especially going to the second half of the season if they're out of the playoff race. And maybe they buy out one of their guys and they open up some time for him. For the Knicks' perspective, they just ruined that relationship. And this would have been a nice guy to have around, a nice future piece, and maybe you didn't want to keep him long term, but you could have built up his trade value a little bit better than you did.
Did you hear the story that came out about Herman Gomez and Porzingis?
Speaking Spanish at practice and they didn't like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I took it with a grain of salt. Yeah, I took it with a grain of salt, but I could see like the Knicks being petty like that and complaining about it. And I just think Hornacek and him didn't get along. And that whole thing about, sorry about my language, but I think Hornacek called Porzingis a pussy and told Herman Gomez to tell Porzingis to play better or something like that. That happened early, like late of last season, early in the summertime. So like that whole relationship was just strange. And I think like Herman Gomez and Porzingis have been bros. They played internationally together for a long time. So I feel bad for KP, to be honest. You tear your ACL and then you lose your best friend.
Yeah. The Knicks have done a very poor job in the last 2.5 years, I'd say, on player and management relations. From the Melo situation and then straight on, to Porzingis, it's been a little bit of a bumpy stretch.
Exactly.
And Joakim Noah now too. I mean, for whatever that's worth, I get Joakim Noah is not the same player, but Hornacek cursing him out, or them cursing each other out in practice, and then banning him from facilities. Whatever.
But I guess while we're on the topic for the Knicks, we didn't have a pod in between. What are your thoughts on KP going down with a torn ACL? Very sad news. Obviously, we wish him the best, being one of the future superstars of the NBA. It was tough to see.
Yeah, it was another damn injury. Hate to see it. And I really think, I thought at least it was going to put the Knicks into sell mode. I thought they were going to start fire sailing these guys. They're going to get rid of Cantor. They were going to get rid of Courtney Lee. As we know, the trade market just wasn't for that.
And it happened a little bit close, which kind of hurt them too. If it happened 2 weeks ago, they would have had a lot more opportunities to try to work the phones. But the fact that it happened so quick kind of hurt them.
Yeah, they didn't have enough time to gauge the market to see what they could really get for certain guys. And I think they were really too set. I think like coming into the trade deadline, they were either looking to add a point guard to help them win now and to dish off Joakim Noah. So they were in like this like kind of a one-track mindset. And then, like you said, the KP injury happening so close to the deadline. I just don't think they were able to, really switch what they had going that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's work. Like, people think that it just happens like that. You call a team. Like, they're talking about trades for a long time sometimes. You could work the phones. And the fact that the Knicks had a lot of different players they could package, I think, hurt them because, if you're able to package players, you're more likely to get that pick. Courtney Lee, Kyle O'Quinn, that could maybe get you a late first. Courtney Lee on his own, not so much, especially in this trade market. But let's talk about guys that weren't traded that we thought would definitely be traded. DeAndre Jordan, Kemba Walker, Tyreek Evans, Damari Carroll, Avery Bradley, Julius Randle, Derek Favors, Marco Bellinelli is another name, Ersan Ilyasova. Who do you think was the most surprising that wasn't traded? Or the team or player? Who are some guys that you're like, wow, I'm surprised they're still in that team?
DeAndre Jordan, I'm not surprised about, but I'm only not surprised about him because Lou Williams re-signed. Once
Yeah.
Lou Williams re-signed, I was like, oh, they're not trading DeAndre. I just thought in my head, like, there's just no way. It wouldn't make any sense to trade DeAndre when you're already signed Lou Williams for pretty much the cheap. For Lou Williams' season this year, that's cheap. That's ridiculously cheap, and I wouldn't be surprised if people try and trade for him next year. But it was surprising for him. Tyreek Evans, they sat him down a week ago. They stopped playing him a week and a half ago because they were dead set on trading him and him not getting hurt. So that was one movie that was surprising. A lot of the other guys you mentioned, Nick, like Bellinelli, Derek Favors, Ilyasova, I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these guys get bought out over the next couple of days. The buyout market this year, I think, is going to be one like we haven't really seen in years past.
It's going to be a crazy buyout market. We'll talk about that in a sec, but I agree. I think some of the guys like DeAndre, like I thought he'd be traded, but then when you said, the extension of Lou Will, I thought that made sense. And Julius Randle not being traded, I think the Lakers are a little bit more okay with keeping him around. He's really kind of earned that. Avery Bradley, they were asking for a first-round pick, so I don't think anybody would give that up for an expiring with, the possibilities of having a lawsuit in the future too. I was actually kind of surprised the Nets didn't trade DeMarre Carroll. I thought there was just like a ton of attention to him. A lot of different teams were asking about him. Miami was really pushing for it. There was even ties to your Pacers. That was one that surprised me, but then a report came out early in the morning saying Kenny Atkinson would probably quit if they lost DeMarre. Obviously, it was somewhat joking, but it just says what he means to the team, and I think the Nets are trying to build that winning culture, and they want to have guys like him around.
And he doesn't hurt you by keeping them.
Yeah.
Because he's had a resurgence.
He's a good mentor.
This is DeMarre Carroll from his Atlanta days, and he's at a different place in his career, obviously. Like you said, he's a mentor to this young team. And his impact when he's on the floor is a lot different than when he's off. Like when he went down and missed a couple of games with a knee injury, you can feel him not there. He has a positive impact. Like you said, him and Kenny Atkinson, they have a very good relationship back from their Atlanta days. I too thought he was going to be on the move. I thought either Miami or I know Denver had some interest because they want to get out of Wilson Chandler. And then when the Pacers came up, like I thought about it a little bit. I'm sure because of what they got with DeMarre Carroll and how well he's played, I'm sure the selling price for Carroll was probably also a first-round pick.
Yeah, and there's not to say they could also move him this summer. A lot of these guys could also get moved this summer if they're still under contract. So it's like there's no rush. And I think a lot of teams want to get a better feel for the offseason, the free agent market, what players are available, who's trying to really shed contracts. You don't really know that. But you mentioned it, the buyout market might be one of the best buyout markets we've ever seen before. Just to give you an idea of some names I possibly could think would be on there. Derrick Rose, Joe Johnson, Shabazz Muhammad, Vince Carter, Channing Frye, Joakim Noah, Zach Randolph, Brooke Lopez, Ersan Ilyasova, Marco Bellinelli, and then maybe even possibly Isaiah Thomas, like I mentioned before. Out of these guys, like you could add some veteran guards, you could add some veteran bigs. Like who do you really like on this list to give a team a nice boost?
I do like the Joe Johnson as a buyout, only because I think you know Joe from his days in the Nets. He's a big time scorer, like not a big time scorer anymore, but like a big time clutch guy. Like when he's on the floor, you still have faith that he's going to hit the shot he's going to take. He just has that effect.
He's a professional
there's a lot of contenders. Yeah, there's a lot of contenders who could use the presence of Joe Johnson in certain moments. Like I wouldn't like him. I don't think on the Warriors. But if he went to Boston off the bench, I could really get behind that. I could get behind Joe Johnson coming off the bench in Boston in a smaller role, especially because when he crossed up Paul Pierce and that little small hand dribble move he did, it'd be fun to see him wearing the green and white.
He was originally drafted by the Celtics too.
A fun tidbit.
Yeah. I like Joe. I think he could fit in any of these teams, to be honest. I would love to see him in Golden State because I'd love to see him get a championship. Cleveland, I think he could give them something. One thing about Joe, too, is he's a filled-out dude. He's 6'7". He can play a little small ball 4. So I'm not saying, you want to play him 30 minutes at that position, but, 10 minutes if you have to is not the worst case scenario, especially against some of these smaller power forwards. So I think Joe. Also, Brooke Lopez, another net guy. I think he could give a nice scoring punch to somebody off the bench as a big. Solid rim protection, not a great defender, especially in that pick and roll, but the fact that he can shoot the 3 ball and he's so talented inside, that's not a bad boost for any team.
No, not at all. And I just wanted you to know, a thing just came out. I didn't even think about this. The Thunder have extremely high interest in Joe Johnson.
Oh, I like that too. I like that's just a solid wing they can bring off the bench to give him some scoring, kind of
Especially a
like a
team that
lighter
needs it.
version of a lighter version of Melo almost in a sense. So
And I think too,
that's not bad.
Joe Johnson probably wants to play. Like, right? He probably wants minutes still, and he could probably get 25 minutes a game over in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I think he wants to play. I think he'd be happy getting anywhere between like 12 and 20 minutes. I don't think he wants to play a ton because he is getting up there in age, but he does stay in great shape. Also, what about Channing Frye? Where do we think he could sign? Like, that'd be an interesting buy. I'm pretty sure he can't sign back with the Cavs, CBA rules. But where else could he fit in that you think he'd be a nice fit? Stretch bigs always have value.
Well, I don't believe they're buying him out as of now, are they?
No, not as of now, but I'm just saying possibly
Right,
as a
right.
guy.
I mean, oh man, if Channing Frye was bought out, and if you're looking at the market of what teams could use a stretch four big,
OKC kind of comes up again.
yeah, right. I'm thinking OKC. I'm thinking Minnesota, but
Interesting.
they kind of have some bigs there. I know Minnesota's interested in going after
D-Rose
Rose,
and
and if
Noah.
Joakim Noah gets bought out, which is just like Thibs, like let go of the glory Chicago Bull days, will you? Go get Ronnie Price if you want to like
He could literally
rekindle.
put out Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler, mystery player Taj Gibson, Joakim Noah.
Oh God, that'd be
Really
horrendous.
reminisce. Let's see who else
Uh,
on there. Zach Randolph, I think you mentioned him. He could be a solid guy, but not big minutes.
Cleveland would go
What?
after him in a heartbeat if Favors and or Randolph get bought out. I think the Cavaliers would have high interest in going after both those guys because I
Yeah,
still think even though they couldn't trade Tristan Thompson today and he wasn't moved, I still think management and probably LeBron agree that Tristan Thompson is just not the best they can do at center. Even if
yeah,
Nerlens Noel, say Noel is bought out, that's another guy that Cavs might target. I don't think they have a lot of faith in Tristan Thompson because he's just not the rim protector he used to be.
yeah. Definitely interesting what they're going to do. I think based off of the trades they made, they have to play a ton small. Or when Love comes back, I think they'll play him at center a lot. I think LeBron is like permanently at the four with this roster, just with the moves they've made. Unless, like you said, they're able to go get another big. It'll be interesting to see. I think the buyout market will have a better idea by the end of February. But as of right now, there could be a lot of big names out there. For everything NBA trade, hit up otgbasketball.com. We had a ton of coverage. We're going to have even more coverage moving forward. Kory, thank you as always for hopping on, and thank everybody for listening. You can catch the outlet on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, and Google Play.
Just the beginning.